What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fins Up Network. It's Ben Morgan, and we recently finished off all of our off-season position preview videos. So before I get to this video, go back and check those out if you haven't already. Broke down every single offensive and defensive position and how it pertains to how the Dolphins could attack those positions this upcoming offseason. So go back and check those out if you haven't yet. But today it's time for some NFL scouting combine prep, one of my favorite times of the season. Before we hit free agency, before we hit the NFL draft, we've got the scouting combine coming up here, and defensive linemen and linebackers, they begin on the field first. That'll be Thursday, March 2nd. And then the next day on the defensive side of the ball anyways, it's the defensive backs. So they'll be on the field Friday, March 3rd. But in today's video, focusing on the defensive side of the ball for those that'll be participating in the combine. And then the next video in this set of previews, we'll flip things, do the offensive side of the ball. But for these, I've singled out 5 players that I want you to keep your eye on. And quite honestly, look at the scouting combine invite list. It's hard to single out 5 guys, but I'm going to talk about 5 guys right here that are going to be on display at the combine. Going to give some info about each of them and then something specific that I'm looking for from their participation at the combine. So whether that's seeing if they can capitalize on a strength that they already have, truly show it off, or maybe they can step up, show improvement in an area that draft analysts are considering a weakness. I'm keeping my eye out on that. But since, like I said, there are tons of additional prospects we're not going to talk about today, let's hear from you. Drop people that I may not have mentioned in the comments. Let's carry on the conversation there. Curious to see who else you have your eye on. But let's start things right away with a position that's not necessarily a need, but due to some intel, the Dolphins are in on this guy. And why wouldn't you be? Scouts are drooling over this guy. He's 6'7", 260 pounds. Obviously, we're talking about Andre Carter, the edge rusher out of Army. If there's a thing about him, though, he's raw. He's new to defense. His first snaps on the defensive side of the ball in college came in 2020. And then he broke onto the scene in college football in 2021, 14 and a half sacks, 17 tackles for a loss. Hello, NFL scouts. That's exactly what you're looking for. Freaks that can put up those numbers at that size combination. That's huge. Now, we did see a dip in production in 2022, at least statistically. He only had 3.5 sacks. But man, we talk about he's got that athleticism. He's got that effort, that high motor that coaches are definitely going to want to work with at the next level. And the biggest weakness, we just talked about how raw he is. He needs to work on counter moves. He needs to develop more of a plan for beating tackles, especially at the NFL level, at this next level on a consistent basis. Also in the run game, got to improve on that technique if he's going to hold his own, set the edge in the NFL in the run game as well. But specific to the combine, man, it's going to be fun to watch this guy simply move during drills at that size. Going to be important to watch that technique, watch his form during the drills as well, especially with him being so new to defense, being new to the edge rusher position. So watching how he performs, how he looks, techniques, fundamentals in comparison to the others that have been doing this and playing this position their entire life, at least their collegiate careers, that's going to be something that we should keep an eye on when it comes to Andre Carter. Let's go to a linebacker because now we are talking position of needs. 6'5", 247 pounds, Jack Campbell, linebacker out of Iowa. And we tend to talk a lot nowadays about these new age linebackers that are a bit lighter. They can fly sideline to sideline. They're oozing with athleticism. I'll tell you what, Jack Campbell isn't quite that. He's a little bit more old school than new school. He's your physical. He's a physical linebacker. He's not scared to get in there, fill gaps. He can shed offensive line blocks. We talk about these lighter guys, these sideline to sideline guys, like simply being erased by offensive linemen at the next level. Jack Campbell doesn't have as much of a deal with that. He can shed a lot of those guys. The nice thing about Campbell as well is he's not all that bad when it comes to coverage. And we'll talk about that more in a second, but he took a pretty decent step forward in his coverage tape in the 2022 season. Now, he's not perfect. He's not the guy that you're typically going to want to see man-to-man against these athletic tight ends, against these fast running backs at the next level. He doesn't have that sideline-to-sideline range that we crave, that we talk about with these new age linebackers. So there's definitely limitations to his game. But check this out. He was the 2022 Butkus Award winner. Say, well, what does that all mean? Well, check out the last couple of guys that have won this award because it's gone pretty well for them. Nakobe Dean, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Isaiah Simmons, Devin White, Roquan Smith. That's not a bad list to be a part of. Definitely intrigued by Jack Campbell. But in the combine, hopefully we can see just more of that improvement in those coverage skills. So keep your eye on those drills specifically if you're watching him when the linebackers perform. Let's go to another position that I am considering a need this offseason, whether it's free agency or the draft. But you're going to notice I'm going to talk about two cornerbacks in today's video, and both of them have similar traits. They're both taller, and they both have thrived in zone coverage in the past. The first guy, Eli Ricks, cornerback out of Alabama. He's 6'2", 190, a little on the lighter side, but still got that good height. Intrigued because he's shown it in college. He can play in man. He can play in zone coverage. But in zone, what he'll do pre-snap is he'll change up his alignments. He's not always showing the same things to quarterbacks. So he's going to play a little bit of a mind game there. He's going to show up different coverages pre-snap. And then boom, post-snap happens. He reacts quick. He's got good ball skills. And what does that lead to? Well, if he can get in the way, passes defended, balls floating up in the air, interceptions. He actually had 4 interceptions his freshman season at LSU. But where he lacks as a cornerback is just that pure speed, that pure vertical speed to run with wide receivers. And then simply just kind of lack of playing time, which is a weird thing because he spent his freshman and sophomore seasons at LSU, transfers to Alabama, doesn't start for the Crimson Tide until week 8 of the 2022 college football season. But the nice thing, so going back to that speed there, in zone coverage, more often than not, he's still going to get some of that safety help, so that should help. But he's going to have to be a technician at the cornerback position. He's going to have to play with instincts because he doesn't have that blazing speed. So I don't want to, looking at the combine here, I never want to put too much stock in a guy's 40-yard dash time. We all love to see the great numbers, the 4.2s, the 4.3s. Don't want to put a ton of stock in it, but I want to see if he can get that thing under 4.5 because no, straight line speed isn't everything, but man, when it hits, it ends up creating chunk yardage plays for the offense because being a cornerback in today's NFL has got to be one of the damn hardest jobs that there is in the NFL. There is speed at the wide receiver position all over the field. It's not just a guy here and there anymore. Every team seems to have a burner, whether the lineup outside, inside. Cornerbacks need to run these days. So keep that thing under 4.5 because, man, what he runs could play a huge role as to where he ends up getting drafted. I clumped the corners together because Byron Jones, cornerback out of Texas A&M, same height as Ricks, 6'2", but he's 205 pounds. But man, he's tall, he's long. He's a cornerback, though, that actually takes advantage of that size with his ability to tackle. He doesn't shy away from ball carriers, whether they're running backs, wide receivers, and he uses that length and those long arms to make tackles that like your typical cornerback isn't going to make. So it's a smaller part of the game, but intriguing nonetheless. Look at him turnover-wise. He only has 3 career interceptions, but man, he's got some good film against stiff competition playing in the SEC. He's got good results, good matchups that went into his favor. Pretty solid athlete, especially at that size playing cornerback. But we're going to want to see him be a little bit more fluid with the movements. Now, you've probably watched the combine before. You've heard all the lingo. Fluid hips, hip mobility. You're going to hear that nonstop when you're watching the combine. But quite honestly, that's what I want to see from him when he's doing his drills. I want to see him be smooth. I want to see him with those loose hips, be able to stay in coverage with a man, be able to transition nice when wide receivers are breaking out of routes. But my opinion on this guy, based on my initial watch anymore, I haven't gone into full depth onto all of these guys yet. He feels like a cornerback that could play in this league at a pretty decent level for a long time. Let's wrap things up here with my 5th and final guy here, DeMarvion Overshown, linebacker out of Texas. We talked about traditional linebackers with Campbell earlier. Here's your sideline to sideline guy, 6'4", 224 pounds. You'll notice about a 30-pound difference there between him and Campbell. 5th-year senior, originally recruited to play safety. So you know he's got the coverage skills. You know he's got the blazing sideline to sideline speed. Like I said, that we crave from linebackers. Think a little bit back to Channing Tindall in last year's draft. Nice thing about his speed, though, is when he's playing the run, if he can get to his spot, if he can diagnose the play, he gets to his spot before the blocker does, perfect. If he's chasing a guy that's running along the sideline, he's got that speed to get down the line of scrimmage, to get across the guy, and to chase guys from down from behind. So that's very great in the run game. And versus the pass, obviously being a former safety, he's got the speed, he's got the quickness, he's very fluid. He drops back into a zone very quick when he's in zone coverage from that linebacker position. Plus, man, he's got that athleticism. Like I said, he's oozing with it. He can hang with those athletic tight ends, those fast running backs in man coverage at the next level. Issue is the size. He doesn't have that ideal size for the position, but it's kind of what we're seeing nowadays. So what happens to them? We talked about it earlier. He'll get caught up in blocks every once in a while. If a lineman gets to the second level and Overshown hasn't really diagnosed a play yet, and he's like a step or two out of position, a lineman will come and take him, kind of erase him from the play. So it'll be interesting to watch what he weighs in at on the combine. Did he work on putting some weight while maintaining that speed? We'll see. I'm definitely interested to see what the official number is, because what did I say he was at? 224 pounds. It'll be interesting to see if when he officially weighs in, if he'll be any heavier while being able to keep all that speed and all that athleticism, because that's what we're going to want to see. I want to see that on display. We talk about a guy highlighting strengths, playing to his strengths. At the end of the day, if he's going to rely on natural speed, athleticism, instincts at the linebacker position, let's see it at the combine. Go out there and blow us away with that athleticism. But that's a quick look into 5 guys that I've got my eye on during these on-field drills for the defensive side of the ball. But like I said, there's a lot more people out there. There's a lot more prospects we're going to be watching over the next few days. Go ahead and drop your defensive prospects you've got your eye on for the combine in the comments below. Curious to see who you've got. I'll pay extra attention to the guys that you're throwing my way as well. And like I said, doing the same thing, new video tomorrow, the offensive side of the ball. So that is my time for today, Dolphins fans. Until then, fins up.